Hello guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel and thank you again for following me. In this chapter we talk about the object-oriented programming concept. In chapter 1 we have learn about how to start Java, what is Java, the basic of Java, relate to variable types. So now we start the main concept of OOP. So at the end of this chapter you'll be able to understand and use the main concept of OOP, that is object and class, related to also the method, constructor, and another concept called encapsulation, and the most important one is the inheritance in Java. So and we will finish by the abstraction and the interface. But the first for today we will focus on object and class, which is the basic to understand before we move to the other concepts. So I will start by a small quiz to see if you know about OOP. What is exactly OOP and what is not the fundamental OOP principle from the following. So please try to type your answer in the comment. Okay, so let's start now the definition of OOP. In general, OOP can be defined as a kind of paradigm based on the concept of object, where each network or each object can be present as an entity in the software. For instance, in real world, any object can be designed as kind of entity or as kind of classes. So the main idea of OOP is to use class and object as the primary building blocks of a program. So let's see, now we have a person. Let's assume we want to create a person management system, or we can say employee management system. So as we can see, from the person we can define some command attribute, which we'll explain later, and from this attribute that the person has we can design a class, and that class can be compiled and print the output. And this compilation and execution we have already learned from chapter 1, how we can compile a file, then get the dot class, and the dot class will be interpreted by the Java interpreter, which can be run in any platform. This the reason we say Java is an independent platform. So anything in real life or in real world can be designed is the concept of class and object. So let's see the advantage of OOP. We assume that we have a procedural approach, that we do not use the approach of OOP. So in this way, as you can see, we have to define each student types. Here we give one example. We say student name, age, student name 2, int name 3. Each type we have to define them one by one. So this is not a structuring, and it's hard to manage if you have many students, you see. So but if we use the concept of OOP, you will see how we can organize all basic concept or all common attribute that we provide to the class person in the previous slide. So here let's assume to see what exactly, let's explain what exactly an object. As you can see, is any entity that has a state, that is our data, and behavior, action. It means what it can do. So for instance, we can say the motor is, you can see it can run, it has some state, okay, and it can also present a physical object like student, a card, and a logical object also like database connection. So in other also we can say an object is an instance of class. We'll define it later. Okay, it occupies memory and has a unique address when created. So this is the reason we say there is memory management in Java, because each object we create will use some memory and address. This is how the JVM will recognize it. Okay, so all this object has what you call the state, that's our data, something called data members, and the behavior, what it can do. Like a dog can run, a person can sleep, a person can run, a student can read. All these are what you call behavior, and in general for behavior we use kind of verb, and you will see it when you start a method exactly. Okay, so these are the principal characteristic about the object. The state, we say, is the data value of the object. The behavior represents functionality, what it can do, and for instance deposit and withdraw. And identity is unique identifier used internally by the JVM to know each other the different type of object we have in the system. So this is one basic example. We have a bank account as an object, and the state can be the name or the holder, the balance, or the account types. And the behavior, what can do from the what we can do from the bank account. We can do a deposit, we can withdraw, we can check also our balances. So as you can see, this is what we call the behavior. And in Java, this behavior will be represented as a method. We'll come back on it. Okay, so and we have the identifier that like maybe is unique for this one, and so that the JVM will recognize this ID. Okay, now what is a class? As you can see, in Java is a group of objects. As we say, let's say a group of students, it is a class. A group of dog is a class. So, and it has mainly what? The attributes, the fields, which we call data or instance later, and behaviors like method, action, object can perform. Okay, so then now since we know the definition of the class, we can define also the object in the term of class. So each instance has its own value for the attribute. This way, we can define in Java an object is an instance of a class. So that means we create object from the class blueprint, and it shares the memory defined in the class. Okay, so let's see one real example about class also. Let's assume we have the class car. As you can see, we have the attribute like brand year, and the method what can do, it can stop, it can also start. So this is how we create object. Each time we use a keyword new, it means we are creating a new object from that class, since we say object is instance of the class. So from now, every time you see this keyword new, it means that we are going to create an object of the class or instance of the class. So let's see this concept based on real example. We assume we want to create a pet management system for dogs, for instance. So what is this? We want to develop this one, and we need to identify the common attribute from the dogs. For instance, we have the breed, we have the age, we have the size, and other characteristics, for instance. So let's see. As we can see, since we say Java is OOP, it means any problem can be designed in a form of object and class. So first thing, we have to identify the common characteristic for this object. So as we see here, we have identified about 4 characteristics about this dog. Then after that, we also have to define the common action, what they can do. As you can see here, the dog can eat, sleep, sit, or run. So that is some of the characteristics about the dogs also, some of the action. So we see we have identified the characteristics, the common attribute if you want. You also identify the common action, like what the object can do. Okay, then after that, as you can see, we can design now as the dog as a class. This is the most important thing about OOP. You see, we have the dog that we have identified the common attribute and action, like what they can do. We give some example. Then this can be mapping as a class with data member and with method. As you can see, we have defined dog class, then we have the data members, and we have the method. So this also can be mapped into a real Java class. So this is the mapping from this object. So you see, from a real problem, we have designed dogs as a type of object. Then from that, we define it as kind of class. Then we implement it exactly in a programming. So you can take the time to try to test this on our in our text editor. Remember, until now we have not started using the IDE. With the reason we have already explained in the previous slide, that is good to understand how the code work, what we call first code, think first, code later. So this will help to design. You see, from the object we have tried to understand how it works, then we right now finalize the code, as you can see here. So this is exactly the implementation. But here we have some new things that we have not explained. The void main, what does mean in Java? So to understand the main method in Java, you can call it as the entry point of any program in Java. Its main is the first thing the JVM will try to check. As we know, in previous slide we have explained what exactly Java Virtual, like the JVM, which we get it from by installing the JDK that we have already explained before. So it means anything that will be executed from the code, even it is thousands of lines, the first thing the JVM will check is what is inside the main class, the main method. So this main method, any line we find, let's assume we get some function or some method inside, he will go to check it inside the program where this method is calling. You see, so what does it mean? So here we have some rules about the main method. First, it has to be public. It's accessible by the JVM from anywhere. It also has to be static, which means we can run without creating object, which we'll learn it more in details later. And void means it does not have a return type. We don't have to return anything from this method. And the string means the command line. So this string will help us to try to print all this system out print that we used before. So this is the main idea of this. So that is all for today. We'll try to stop, but I will check if you understand. So please try to answer to this quiz and type the right answer to see if you understand it. Then I will provide you the right answer later. Thank you. That is all for today. Please don't forget to give your answer in the comment and also to follow me. Thank you for your support.